I
Jesus.
refuse. I refuse to lose any more valuable content. And Blair's
Uh,
like, and that's the last word you hear out of me tonight.
oh yes, I'm shutting up right now.
Good evening, good morrow, good morning. It's not that episode, but I used the wrong intro. Welcome to 357 Radio, joined by your sexy hosts, Brother Blair and me. I'm speaking with some authority there. How are you doing tonight, brother?
I am doing the do.
Ooh, doing the Mountain Dew, the dew that runs
Well,
down the mountains?
I'm not literally doing the do. That would be pretty inappropriate for this video session.
I mean, there's a reason the cameras top up only. Nobody knows what happens. Are we
Am
wearing
I wearing
pants?
pants? We don't know. We were on the
See,
same
I,
wavelength there.
I'm telling you, man, I'm liking this pond water, baby. It's crisp and
Uh,
fresh. Bloop bloop.
uh,
So
well, while we're
tonight,
waiting for the Riz, would you like a reading?
oh, Uncle, yeah, you know what? Let's do a reading for the Riz. Let's figure out where our ancient and venerable old ass Grandmaster is tonight.
Watch me pull the tower right away.
Oh God, I'm gonna feel bad real quick.
Oh no, it's the Knight of Pentacles. It's fine. He's making money.
Oh, but he's also a bitch. That's also, that's a partial reading. It happens, you have to be an expert 33rd degree tarot
Yes,
reader
yes.
to get that reading.
He's making money while being a bitch.
Hey, mate, listen, I think we underestimate when he says he's taking out the trash. Oh, all right, all right. Brother Blair, let's do the do, which is that part of the deed that keeps us out of trouble indeed. Wrap us up today.
Wrap us up. Okay. Oh well. Oh, right. I forget it every time, and then you call on me, and I'm like, "What?" Okay.
I think every episode, we're on episode 9. That he's had this is
Yes.
his primary job.
Is it 9
It,
already?
it is. It's a 9. And you know what?
Oh
We've
my
hit
gosh.
every one every week. I'm so fucking proud of it. May not come out at the same fucking day, but we've
True,
gotten it
true.
done every week. And there's a lot of there's a lot of podcasts out there that cannot speak to any kind of consistency at all. You get about 3 episodes in and then you're just left on the edge, teetering, and I am an edge lord master. I don't support it. I don't like it. Not.
Don't do it. Do as I say, not as I do.
Thank you. Thank you. That is the motto of this here podcast. And speaking of this podcast, what are we talking about today?
Oh, right. The thoughts and opinions of the participants are our opinions alone and do not reflect any Grand Lodge opinions, edicts, or positions. So here we go.
Here we go. May the force be with you. Insert music we can't afford to pay for.
And also with you.
Oh, okay, so Yoda, it's the challenge of Yoda impersonations.
You can probably beat me.
So
you must unlearn what you have learned.
See, I immediately I rolled into Stitch.
Ohana means family.
You must unlearn what you have learned. Jedi uses the Force for knowledge and defense, never for attack.
I'm
It's like
sensing some
Smeagol.
Gollum too. Yeah.
Because listen, baby, I am Lord of the Rings all day, every day. This is a natural part of life, never precious.
Oh.
All right, God. All right. This is the best part about it being our show. Nobody has to tell us how it has to go. Speaking
Righto.
of rhymes that continue. I can't because I thought about it and then that breaks it.
Where is our Riz?
We are without our authority. We're like children without guidance. All right. Today's episode is sponsored by the Force. May it ever be with you and the odds ever not in your favor, because God, it seems to suck to be a Jedi.
I mean, yes, you have to be celibate.
All right, there's a series of rules and laws to the whole Jedi concept that at first I was like, that's fucked. Where they're like, all right, as the little baby, we're going to take you from your home, take you from your family. You're taught the general concepts of Buddhism, where you're like, love everybody. Everything is, oh Christ, my video's not been on. I've been sitting here staring at the blank space.
Yeah, you have.
Yeah.
He is
Oh,
missing the coonskin hat.
you know,
How dare he?
it's that New Jersey. He's
It's something. It's definitely something.
he's probably knackered.
It
Well,
might be knackered, yes.
he got a little too got the sauce too soon. All right.
Having some gabagoo.
Well, I can't get my fucking brain right, so I'm writing a brief like outline of what I want my thoughts to do for this.
It's a little too late for that, isn't it?
Is it? I think I can do. I can't do it on the fly. All right. Well, in this case, we're looking in time. Three, two, one. Today, tonight, whenever you may be listening to this particular thing, what we're talking about are things which are Masonic adjacent or connected to that experience. When you come into the craft, there's this echo, there's this similarity, this odd remembrance that what you went through was like something you'd either seen or experienced before. Brother Blair, do you have any examples of this in your journey into the craft of Freemasonry?
Tons of things. And I think it's just the interconnectedness of all things, really. I mean, there's that theory that if you buy a red car, you see a red car everywhere. So when you become a Mason and you're learning about all these symbols, you're gonna start seeing them everywhere. You'll watch a movie and you'll be like, "Oh, I see a ring. That's a ring right there." Pause. I do this while
They
I'm
walk
watching
through a
stuff with
door.
maybe not that bad, but come on. I'll be watching stuff with Sam and I'll just be like, ooh, pause, back up, look at that, look at that, look at that.
See, my wife gets the unfortunate, like unnecessary commentary, which comes with historical lectures. So we'll be sitting there watching a movie and they'll do something like walk into a school building and it's like, bink, pause. Did you know that the study of the liberal arts commonly shared in our public school system was disseminated by Freemasons and and she's like, hey, honey, you love me, right? You want to stay married to me, right? I need you to shut up.
I
Thank you.
mean, at
Click.
least you have the courtesy to pause it. That makes the difference to me. Because I hate it when people talk over movies and TV shows. I would rather just doink, have it out, say your piece. Here we go again, starting.
It's a helpful tool to the autistic when you're like you have that cue where it's like, listen, I'm going to and I don't think I would pause it. I'm gonna be honest. I likely started talking and she's like, I'm going to pause it, otherwise I will miss key critical plot points. Let's address this.
That is fair. That is fair.
How well does Sam deal with your interjections? Do you mansplain? And if so, does she get it?
I
They get
don't
it.
mansplain. Um, I try not to do that. But I mean, if it's something like masonry that only I kind of have the insider knowledge about, I'm like, look, this is what's going on. Here's the key points. Here's what you may miss.
So do you use any of those Masonic adjacent experiences to or things, and by Masonic adjacent, things that, caught that echo of someone, do you ever use those to try to explain it to people outside of the craft?
Hmm. Um,
Like Freemasonry is like blank.
Freemasonry is like being a Jedi, but we don't have cool superpowers or lightsabers. Wish we did. Not
Yeah.
not really. Not really. It's not really come up much.
Well, it's kind of hard to equate Freemasonry to anything. But once you join, there is that kind of, I almost feel like that's a bias that could be on that list that we saw on episodes past, where you have experienced something before. Then, like you said, you buy the red car, you see the red car. Do you think that that experience that you're getting from Freemasonry, where is that emanating? Is it more universal? Is it based in some ancient, older system of instruction? Is it a secret of Freemasonry where that comes from? Or is it just because they happen to use symbols that are readily used in our society that, just keys into that part of the psyche?
I think it depends. Because there are some references that are really overt. Like, okay, they're going for this. You can tell. And then there's some things it's like, that kind of looks like something Masonic, but I'm probably reaching.
There's a lot of I've seen a lot of the chat GPT and AI Masonic art that's been kind of popularized recently. And what's fascinating is the way that you see components to it, like, oh, that could be Masonic, but there's also six other. The Oddfellows is a good example of that. Look at Oddfellows memorabilia, especially from like the 1850s, Masonic memorabilia from the 1850s. If the Oddfellows was not around in the 1850s and that's a totally off time, it's Blair's fault. Um, but they look very similar on the outside. You can see like, oh, well, there's an apron. They have a symbolic iconography that is drawn in a very biblical-esque landscape. Yeah, I don't know the right way to describe when you look at something like, oh, look, there's a green hill, a sun, and a structure of some kind in a distant village. You see that very common in Christian art. How did we get here? What am I?
I think a lot of that, like I mentioned when we were chatting, that a lot of it comes from the chivalric orders because Masonry was inspired by some of that. Uh, and A.E. Waite, he talks about this in one of his books, how he saw the tarot, for instance, as being the knight's journey. So, and this kind of proliferates culture because of all the stories, Sir Gawain and Lancelot and the Round Table. It's all the hero's journey. And
Oh,
fiction is going to relate to that a lot. So you're going to see that. Doesn't necessarily mean it's Masonic, it may be chivalric or knightly.
okay. So it seems more that Masonry is in fact built more on the universal experience that our psyche keys into, and less of something explicit to Freemasonry. That you're looking more at this hero's quest. Now tell me, good Blair, what is the hero's quest?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Ooh,
Uh,
break it down.
so I don't have the definition in front of me or anything. I'm just gonna go with like my idea of it.
Let's hit it. That's my favorite way to do
So
it.
I would say the hero's journey is the journey to be satisfied with your life and your place in it. Sort of relating to the ego that we talked about and our journey to subdue it and keep it within due bounds. We want to be proud of our lives. We want to feel like we belong and that we've accomplished something. So the quest could be spiritual, it could be monetary, it could fit into a lot of different aspects of your life. And each one is probably a quest on its own. So the quest to be comfortable, the quest to be spiritually where you want to be, have the kind of life and family you want, all of that good stuff.
It's interesting how those wants, those drives and desires get painted in very different lights by different cultures. In certain spaces, you're like the desire for family, the hero's quest takes them on this roundabout space. They're taken away from their family. They get pulled into different ordeals. They are transformed as an individual to a point that when they're inevitably brought back, they are completely different. That journey happens different for everybody because everybody's at a different stage in life. And I think that's where a lot of the perspective comes from, where these adjacent experiences, when you're a parent, the way you see things is jaded by that perspective, your duties, your obligations, everything you've done to get there. When you're a child, you're still jaded, but in a very different way. It's about your perspective and that key focus on how you see what you experience and what comes to you. So as you get older in your Masonic career, in your career in life, your career, seeing all of the symbols that are out there, you realize that a lot of them are inevitably the same, that it's getting you to this kind of theme to the grand experience. So what would you say, Brother Blair, has been the most challenging part for you to recognize where you're at in this journey?
Hmm. uh, I think it's hard to prioritize, especially if you're super busy trying to accomplish other goals. For example, you know, your spiritual self, you can't really, you don't really have much time to go for that if you're spending all of your time working and taking care of your family and doing all of that. You have very little time at the end of the day. And do you use that time to explore your spirituality, or do you take that time to just lay down and have a beer, kick off your shoes, and watch some Netflix, some self care? It's hard because you'll be like, "Ooh, I really need to do this, this, and this," but I'm really kind of worn out. I'd rather just eat some popcorn and chill.
Oh, that was like that's my every night. And you're sitting there like, oh yeah, I've got all this time on my hand. I could be on Duolingo. I could do a series of things that are seemingly beyond the moment that you're existing in right now because you're not doing them, but you've projected yourself into them. You've gone there. So what do you do? Do you just sit and kind of overthought and go, fuck me, I failed because I didn't do anything? Or is it the prioritization of self-care? How do you find peace with what you elect to do in that point?
Use that 24-inch gauge. Do your
Ooh,
best.
slap.
So, no, I don't think you should sit there and be like, I failed. You should say, I had a rough day. I'm going to enjoy this moment. I'm going to relax. I'm not going to let it get me down. And then what you're going to do is plan. So you're like, okay, tomorrow I'm going to do this. I'm going to carve out like 2 hours to do this thing. Tonight, I'm not going to worry about it. I'm going to put it off. I'm going to chill right now. And then I'll feel better tomorrow. Now, sometimes that doesn't exactly work out. And you'll be like, oh, well, I'm just going to push it some more.
Yeah, procrastination is a thing. There is an overpressurized system. That's not good.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I try to carve out time for certain things. Like I've done pretty well of keeping like an hour on Sundays because I'm gonna do 357. I'm gonna do that every week. Every week. Riz.
Yeah, if you haven't noticed, we're missing somebody. Plot twist, we didn't bring that up yet. In
Oh
which
yeah,
case,
yeah.
let me throw that out and get
The
that.
elephant not in the room.
Yeah, it's funny because he's fat. Can't breathe.
Jesus.
He's not. I've never physically seen him. It's terrible for me to say that, and I'm terribly sorry, brother. I just did. It felt comically appropriate. So, I'll buy you a drink. I'm sorry. Um.
Oh,
Hmm.
it's a
If you,
hangover reference, right? It's funny because he's fat.
thank you. Yes, that was exactly it. I can't do Yoda, but I can randomly pull
Yeah.
out a hangover. Listen, that movie was so formative to my youth, and I can't tell you why. I can't tell you why. I can't tell you what it did for me, except for maybe I now believe in the crazy possibility of Las Vegas as a Babylonian Mecca. But that's for another episode.
I did when the time that that movie was out, I was like, I really want to go to Vegas with my friends now. I want to hang. I want to do some crazy stuff.
Dude, I bet you that movie came out in fucking Vegas, saw about a 15% increase in traffic.
I guarantee it did.
Bet.
Guarantee it.
Like, oh my God, that was
Oh,
amazing. Okay, having that was my ab exercise for today. Happy Easter, Ishtar. Any way you celebrate this particular spring, I celebrated it by getting fat in the name of Jesus. So,
amen.
so mote it be.
Oh God.
Among the overused Masonic expressions.
Mm-hmm.
So, what has been the
Right. Well,
most?
back on track.
Yeah.
So Brother Rizzatello was going to bring up the connection was with Star Wars. How the Jedi and that whole universe kind of makes him feel that like it's Masonic in some way.
So I'm gonna speak on his behalf, not because I can, but because in this space he can't stop me.
True.
So, are Freemasons Jedi? Well, let's look. So what we're gonna do here is I'm going to do a little bit of Googles, and we're going to pull up the Jedi rules. What is the Jedi rules of behavior? The Jedi Code. That is the word that I'm looking for. Good God, there is so fucking much to this. Holy shit.
50
Okay.
page syllabus.
So, plot twist, Jedis are Buddhists and they love to read, not to lead. All right. So, emotion yet peace, ignorance yet knowledge, passion yet sincerity, chaos yet harmony, death yet the force. So okay, they're very poetic. A Jedi does not act for personal power or wealth, but seeks knowledge and enlightenment. A Jedi never acts from hatred, anger, fear, or aggression, but acts when calm and at peace with the Force. Jedi are guardians of peace in the galaxy. They use powers to defend and protect, never to attack others. Jedi respect life in any form. They serve others rather than rule over them for the good of the galaxy, and they seek to improve themselves through knowledge and training. Okay, I'm starting to think he's smoking the good shit.
I mean, there you go. Some of that kind of correlates.
So what's different though is the concepts to the Jedi, as I understand them as a fellow Star Wars nerd, is that there's a lot of austerity represented in it. And in Freemasonry, we don't really restrict you. I don't think the lodge in its own right, it doesn't force you to do shit. We don't focus on you in your youth. We focus on you kind of like whenever you chose to arrive, but that could also be a metaphoric youth as well. I think what's interesting with that is this purpose for enlightenment and the exemplification of service over ruling. I guarantee you that there are some egos in the craft of Freemasonry that would say that they are entitled to rule because of their degree or their understanding therein. You know, that they would be better fit. I've heard a lot of Masons make this claim, and I have been one of them, that if Freemasons around the world, it'd be a good place. And I think that the tenets behind it, you could argue it. If Christians ran the world, would it be a good place? If Buddhists ran the world, would it be a good place? If we restricted any, and if we universalized any one thing, what would that lack of diversity do? What would that lack of friction do?
Oh, I don't think any one group would be really good at ruling everything because there's always going to be bad elements. I mean, any group you can think of, I can think of a few to bring up that are not good.
Okay, so let's look at that within the craft. So in Star Wars, the fall of the Jedi Order occurred basically because they had too much power. The good was disproportionately balanced, and the Jedi Temple, which was the dominating space, the grand service, was no longer serving the root principles of its institution, and that institution fell. We see the destruction of King Solomon's temple, the destruction of the temple. So similarly, what's an influence that's worked its way into Freemasonry that kind of fucks with those motives?
I would say just individual biases in every shape, color, and form. If someone is very intolerant, whether they be a political intolerant person or a religious intolerant person, that's going to be a problem.
Do you think that the craft of Freemasonry has a responsibility to enforce its teachings through its members? With a kind of like a stricter rule or a stricter guide. We talk about Masonic charges, instances where a brother or a member of the lodge can file official charges against another. But that's not you don't see that happening for, he wasn't a good, his character was shit today. There's not a moral enforcement on anything. And likewise, most people would say there shouldn't be. That's an individual judgment. But the Jedi, they didn't have this principle. If you fucked up, if you acted out, there was punishment. There was a disciplinary action.
And I think there should be if you're crossing certain lines. I mean, if you are attacking another brother verbally or physically over his choice of religion or political leanings, that's a no-no.
Is it like a slap on the wrist, or is it you're going to take a month and get out?
I think it should be a gradual thing. Like
Okay.
you get a nice talking to first, you know. Do it again. Ooh, maybe we're gonna go to trial. Maybe we're gonna have some issues. Uh yeah. Just like a three strikes you're out sort of
What
thing.
do you think the argument is made for that personal politics, right? We see no politics in the lodge. There is a socialism that occurs. There are personal politics that don't qualify under politics as so defended. We don't talk about religion. We don't talk about politics in lodge, but there is a personal politics. There is a personal difference or opinion that works its way into a space that can oftentimes conflict the tenets of Freemasonry. Who is responsible for that culture?
Everyone, right?
So when it
I
fucks up though,
mean,
when it gets off, when it starts to get to that point where you're like, you walk into a space, you're like, this isn't great. Well, who's responsible for that? Is everybody there? But if they're like, well, yeah, it's really this one brother that's kind of the main space. Well, wouldn't you all then be responsible for allowing this person to get? How do you start that dialogue? Where do you establish responsibility? And or if you don't establish responsibility, and it's just a sense of good, action, good action forward. Where does that begin if you can't find perspective on that plot? You need a point of reference to see where progress begins.
I would say the person responsible to begin with is the person who cast the first stone. If you continue to let it happen, then yeah, you would be culpable as well for not speaking up and saying something. Now, if they don't stop after you've engaged them in a brotherly manner, then I don't know. Then it's becomes wholly their responsibility, I think.
All right. To be honest, I agree. I can vibe with that. So the reason this for me ties into, well, the concept of Freemasonry and the Jedi. So we don't so much talk about this, but that's the Sith, right? So in the Jedi Order, or in the Star Wars universe, the Jedi are counterbalanced by the Sith, or the dark side of the Force, and those who serve it, whether that's the Empire as a whole or each individual incarnate Sith Lord. For Freemasonry, there is an equivalent. There is an antithesis. There is an enemy to the craft of Freemasonry. In Star Wars, it didn't go well for the Jedi. In the beginning of the story, it starts that they are in such power that the government that they have sworn to support is prolific and strong, but it's become corrupt. And as such, the Jedi, as their servants and fierce protectors, those entitled with abilities given by the universe to protect peace, are destroyed. The downfall is at the hands of one of their own, very similar to certain stories our traditions might inform us of. And through that destruction, that era of once they added the last three in the Star Wars universe, it changed the entire field. Was black, white, and then it's now gray? Question mark. It's very different. And so who is the enemy to Freemasonry today in that analogy to you?
Hmm. Hmm.
Ah, when it's
So
rubble, lipstick smell.
as far as far as like an ideology, I would say misinformation is a big threat.
What
Um,
institution?
well, throughout history, there was the Catholic Church.
Blair's like, ooh, I have a list.
I
Excuse
do.
me.
The Catholic Church was a very big enemy to Freemasonry. Not so much now. It's a little cooler now. Um, and then at one point, the mustache man from World War II, he
Whose
was an
name the
enemy.
algorithm you cannot say.
I am not going to say the man's name.
He's the
He who
literal
must not
fucking
be named.
Voldemort. Get out of my head. We just took different sides to the square. I'm like, I either owe you a drink or we have conversations afterwards.
I'll take the drink
Oh, well, I'm
with a
both.
conversation.
See, there we see. Look at that. There's a prescription for that. Excuse me.
uh,
So institutionally, it's religion. Religion's to blame, says Blair.
and
That's the
politics.
okay. So
I mean,
what's
the
the common
mustache man
ground
was more of
between
a
the two?
political power structures.
Ooh, 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 ooh. This is a good one. I like that you said that. That just tickles my pink. I'm quivering, brother. Power structures. So the purpose of the ancient schools of mystery were to, this goes to alchemy, separate the coagula. Your goal is to separate the coarse from the fine and then put them back together because you are realigning that state for a further and further refinement. You are freeing the light from the material. Docem et lux. I'm gonna fuck that up. Someone's gonna correct that later. Either way, tenebris it looks. Darkness to light. I should stop talking. Words. Blair, I need help. Where were we at?
Power structures.
Thank you, Christ on a cracker. It's not me. The antithesis to a power structure would be a freedom, like a liberator. So Freemasonry is the liberator. It's something that takes the individual consciousness through a series of transformations to liberate it from the bondage of the moral self, not the moral self, the physical self, which would very much be what a power structure is intending to reinforce, is not the freedom of that, but the structure around it. So society is a power structure which inevitably is feeding the ego, furthering itself, expanding itself. And that becomes the antithesis to the systems which liberate the self. So, in other words, though, if you wanted one, you couldn't have it without having the other if they're truly antithetical to each other. Oh, I just like it. I liked that I was like, that was good.
uh, hit the nail in all the right places.
Yeah. Oh, not like it. So beyond Star Wars, what other experiences do you think have those adjacent feel to Freemasonry for you?
So, as far as fiction goes, I'm a huge fan of Stephen King and The Dark Tower specifically. And there's this idea in those books of a quartet. And this is like a group of people who are bound by destiny to come together to
Ooh,
fight against something.
ooh, that's sexy.
So, Ka in the book series means destiny or, will. And Tet is just a grouping. So, a group of people who are bound together by this amorphous concept.
The fate or destiny.
Fate, destiny, yes.
Got it.
And that kind of resonated with me on a Masonic level. Especially, there's also a chivalric aspect of it when you bring in the gunslingers, who were like, think Wild West version of the Templars.
All
They didn't
right.
fight with swords, they fought with guns, revolvers. And it was just to fight this evil. Really,
Okay.
really fascinating stuff.
So the only experience I had with the Dark Tower was not the book, but the film adaptation. And so, but the context that you give changes that entire.
Don't get me started on that movie.
I think I saw a nerve flesh out from that coon hat.
Oh man, they tried to shove 7 books into one movie and it
Oh,
just did not work.
good God. That's a lot. That's a lot of framework to try to shove into something. Now, so what's interesting with me about the concept of the Dark Tower is the tower itself kind of being a pivotal. Now, I don't know the concept of the role of the tower in that universe. What I knew from it was personal experience. Both in tarot, there's a card that represents the tower and it represents destruction. But in personal experience, the tower, it's like my theory is that there is intersections of the gravitational poles of the earth and different parts of it that have influences on not just energy but thought and consciousness. And so everybody in every culture in every society, they know that there is a tower somewhere, and this tower is a real thing to everybody. It just affects consciousness. And so there is a world that exists which is a stream of consciousness affected by this vast poles throughout the world. And the problem is that means a lot of light gets stuck there that has to inevitably be pulled out of there. But the only way you could get it out of there is by going into there. And if you can't get into there because it's a black hole, it's a very powerful thing. You have to have a system to go in and out. And when I watched that movie, it seemed very similar that there were kind of there were structures there that they couldn't well describe in a single hour, two
Yeah,
hours.
they kind of they stripped it down and they're like, okay, we're gonna put this concept into the movie, but we're not gonna really flesh it out.
It felt more it oddly enough felt kind of like a dystopian Christian um drama. And I mean that in the sense like anytime you see there's like, oh, there's a bad guy over there, and that bad guy is like the devil, the archetypal, the bad, oh bad, and he's being pursued by an antagonist that has a vendetta or an obligation to pursue them. And then there's an innocent character who is the perspective point for this drama. And then I'm like, okay, well, there's our hero's quest. There's that.
Oddly enough, in the series, all of these religions exist and the deities themselves exist. They all do. It's like there's many different deities in the series, like the turtle
Interesting.
god Maturin, who holds
Shout
the
out.
who holds the earth on his back. And then there's a bear, a giant bear who is a deity. And then there's Gan, who is like the all father kind of figure. And then they do mention Christianity as being like this other religion that they don't practice, but they acknowledge it. Like the gunslinger character will call it. He'll be talking about Christianity, and he'll say, "The man Jesus said this, this, and that."
Okay. So that I like that. That's almost American Gods-esque, where you have these overlapping systems of theology and spirituality. But that's the best part. And I think it's something that contemporary thought didn't allow, was that they could exist together. And then, eventually we're like, okay, guys, plot twist. What if? It's all the same. Like that reality can be really shaking if you put some weight on the foundational concept that yours was right alone. You're forced to concede with that. And you see a lot of stories, a lot of movies, even the hero in Freemasonry, the individual, you have to concede with the fact that you are wrong, not prepared, you were not able to complete what you wanted to do. That inevitably and I mean, you look at Masons today, we do not, this got me. I looked at a book that contained all of the marks for Masons going back to like 1856. And you looked at their marks and they rivaled modern day graphics with how they were drawn. And these motherfuckers drew them with fountain pens or quills. And their lines are so straight. The lettering and the language is clear and concise. And I look at today and we are barbarians with Ugga-Ugga-esque communication because we've become so lazy that our skills are they're low. Our bars are low. We're all a bunch of low level monkeys compared to these gentlemen and women and characters in life who had to just be better. There was no that you every day was an improvement because you didn't get the choice to be like, I don't feel like. We talked about that earlier, right? You can push we can do that because we have the comfort that says, yeah, I don't rely on having to hunt my own food. I don't have to go chop down. Some people do, and I'm not saying everybody is bound by the same convenience, but where society has evolved prevalently, you see that relationship with the liberating system devolve. So with Freemasonry, you're taught to serve your community, to be an active part of it. Challenge to this, you mentioned it earlier, you can't really pursue that path of enlightenment and actively be involved with community and family. And I'm not saying you can't have it balanced. Freemasonry says there's balance in its progressive space. I don't disagree with that. Freemasonry also says you're not going to do it in one lifetime. If you were going to do it in one lifetime, you have to start sacrificing these things to get to that path of enlightenment. So Freemasonry seems powerful because it gives you this like acid dose, just a little happy dab, a little micro dose of enlightenment across the way. There's words. Now you get
That was a
words.
lot.
That was a lot.
That was
You're
a
you're allowed to stop me. You know that, right?
What I just say, stop.
Stop. You just hold up your
Stop.
hand. Stop. You
Slow.
stop.
Caution.
You saw what fucking the Riz did last time. He just looked at me funny, like, are you going to shut up? That works. That works. My introduction is the dude who doesn't shut up.
But yes, all good things you said. All
Yes, yes, good things, good things, good words if you
good
haven't
things.
consumed.
Yes.
Yes, brother. How would you like to toast and send off our listeners for our episode tonight?
Oh. Okay. So I would say that the principles of Freemasonry can be found universally. You can find them in fiction, you can find them predating Freemasonry. The principles have always been there and they will probably always be there.
Ooh, that just gave me goosebumps. Remember, this was not your daddy's podcast. I hope you never thought it was. Thank you for listening. Tune in for next episode next week, sometime, whenever. Enjoy.